I want a divorce. I found someone who actually makes me happy. That was a message that shattered 22 years of marriage. 7 words, delivered coldly via text, while I sat at my desk at ClearPath Solutions, deep in the middle of reviewing a client's fraud detection model. My name is Eric Wallace, and I'm 45 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina and for the past 15 years, I've worked as a financial systems analyst. My job is to catch lies before they do too much damage. Ironically, it didn't occur to me until that very moment that one of them had been living in my house. Jessica, my wife, was supposed to be in San Diego at a marketing conference. Just 3 days, she'd said. Routine. We'd done this dance countless times. She traveled regularly for her role at Mercury Insight Group rubbing elbows with executives and influencers. I never thought twice about it. We'd been together since high school, married right after college. If anyone was supposed to be untouchable, it was her. Then my phone buzzed again. I've already transferred the retirement funds to my private account. You can have the house. I don't need it anymore. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I simply placed my coffee down, opened our banking app, and began checking balances. The numbers didn't lie, but neither did they say what Jessica expected. She thought she'd gotten away with something. She didn't realize she'd walked right into a system I had built and hardened for over a decade, one that didn't just monitor our finances, it learned from them. I typed back, I hope you're happy. No anger, no accusations, just 7 quiet, definitive words. I knew better than to argue in real time. That wasn't how you handled theft. You let the system speak for you. By 10:15 a.m., as I watched joint accounts update on 3 internal dashboards, tools I had built to safeguard multimillion-dollar portfolios, I saw it happening in real time. Jessica's attempt to move 6 figures out of our shared retirement fund had tripped 5 fraud detection protocols. She bypassed none of them. Retirement accounts, emergency savings, investment portfolios. She even attempted to route funds through a checking account she thought was hers alone. That's the thing with automation. It doesn't care about intentions. It cares about patterns, and her patterns scream suspicious. By noon, the alerts began hitting my phone, not texts from Jessica, but messages from our bank security team. Account under review. Deposits frozen pending investigation. She was locked out, not by me, but by the very safeguards I'd built for others. A system I designed to companies to stop embezzlement had just saved me from my own wife. I didn't celebrate, didn't text her back. I closed the alert window and returned to work. Another client financial health needed protecting, and I wasn't about to let my personal disaster interrupt that. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't stop life from moving forward. It just forces you to shift your footing. Jessica's phone, I knew, would start buzzing soon. She'd log in, see a 0 balance, and panic. She would call the bank. They would tell her the accounts were frozen. Fraud protocol. Routine. What she hadn't counted on was that I was the architect behind those very protocols. We'd been married since our early 20s. High school sweetheart from Greenville Star. She was bright, magnetic, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and have 3 new friends by the time she walked out. I was more reserved. I dealt in numbers and logic. While she made people feel seen, I made sure we could afford to keep the lights on. You're too careful with money, she used to tease after I'd review our taxes 3 times before filing. Someone has to be, I'd reply with a grin. And it worked for a long time. We complemented each other. She rose through the ranks at Mercury, and I built systems that protected high-net-worth individuals from financial disasters. We owned a home, had no debt, and a solid retirement plan. We didn't have kids, by choice, but we had structure, security. Or so I thought. Looking back, the warning signs weren't explosive. They came gradually, like a dimmer switch turning down the light. 6 months ago, she stopped asking about our future plans. 3 months ago, she opened a new credit card, one she didn't tell me about. Just 2 weeks before she left for San Diego, she mentioned that the guest room felt too cluttered, even though it hadn't changed in years. The night before she left, she asked me, how much do we have in total retirement? About backslash $800,000 combined. I told her. She nodded. Just curious. It made sense then. It makes more sense now. By Friday morning at 11:30 a.m., my phone rang. I recognized the tone before she spoke. Controlled panic dressed up as casual irritation. Eric, my card's not working. I didn't answer right away. What's your balance? I asked. 0. How is it 0? I transferred. She paused. The silence was thick. Then came the accusation. What did you do? Nothing, I said, and I meant it. The system flagged the transfers. It triggered a fraud hold. Standard protocol for large withdrawals without dual authorization. She was speechless. Then, after a moment, how long? 5 to 7 business days, I replied. Maybe more. She hung up. I looked at my dashboard, where 6 alerts blinked quietly. My coffee had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. It wasn't anger that settled in me. It wasn't sadness either. It was clarity, like walking out of a storm and realizing you'd been soaked long before the lightning struck. I'd spent over 2 decades building a life, building trust, building systems to protect others. And the woman I loved tried to beat that system for money. What she didn't know was the system was never just code. It was me. That weekend was quiet, too quiet. No more texts, no calls, just silence. The kind that used to mean peace in our home now felt like standing in the middle of a bomb crater, everything scorched, eerily still. I went about my routines, morning jog, grocery store, clean the garage. But under it all, my mind kept replaying those words. I found someone who actually makes me happy. Who? When? How long? I didn't want to become the kind of man who digs for details just to punish himself, but I needed to know, not for revenge, but for closure, for understanding. Because when someone rewrites your entire reality in a single message, the human brain naturally tries to piece it back together. That night, I pulled up our shared calendar and emails. I wasn't snooping. Technically, I still had access. And it didn't take long to find patterns I'd missed before. There were meetings that didn't exist, flights that didn't match hotel bookings, and expense reports that didn't add up. The San Diego conference, for example, she'd used reward points to book the flight, but there was no hotel confirmation in her email. In fact, she'd routed all recent bookings through a secondary Gmail address, one she must have created months ago. Sloppy, but intentional. I traced it back to a name I didn't recognize at first, * Tyler Grantstar, an executive from her Denver trip in March. I found his LinkedIn. Mid-40s, VP of Business Development for some SaaS startup. Confident smile. Overconfident. Really, a man used to closing deals with drinks and charm. My stomach twisted. Jessica had met him during one of her networking retreats, and I use that term loosely now. In her private Gmail, I found a thread that confirmed everything. Dozens of exchange messages. Hotel reservations for 2. Restaurant confirmations. Even shared Spotify playlists. That hurt in a way I wasn't ready for. I could handle the betrayal of money. I'd built armor for that. But the emotional intimacy, the secrets, that was like being stabbed with 1,000 tiny blades. One message in particular stood out. She'd written to Tyler, "He doesn't get me anymore. Everything in our marriage feels like a spreadsheet. I need passion, not planning." I just stared at the screen. My world, neatly categorized, properly aligned, secured with passcodes and audit trails, suddenly felt empty. Had she really seen our life as nothing but ledgers and tax returns? I closed the laptop, sat in the dark, and for the first time since this all started, I let myself feel it. Not anger, not logic, but grief. We had built a life together. College memories, inside jokes, birthday traditions, Sunday movie nights, all reduced now to a few digital messages and a failed bank transfer. And yet, even through the pain, I realized something. Jessica hadn't outsmarted me. She'd underestimated me. Because while she had been planning an escape, I had been unknowingly building a fortress, one built not just on technology, but on discipline, on truth, on paying attention. On Monday morning, the bank confirmed the investigation was progressing. The flagged transactions had triggered not only internal protocols, but also federal anti-fraud alerts because of the size and routing of the funds. Jessica would likely receive a formal notice within the week. Her new private account was under scrutiny. Still, I didn't take pleasure in it. What was there to celebrate? That I caught the woman I loved trying to rob me blind? No. All I felt was confirmation. She had chosen Tyler, yes, but she'd also chosen to deceive, to manipulate, to drain our shared life and vanish. She hadn't just fallen out of love. She'd gone into battle, quietly, strategically, and she'd lost. That evening, I made a copy of all the financial records, email logs, and message threads. Not to use against her, yet, but to be prepared. I had a feeling this wasn't over. People like Jessica rarely admit defeat cleanly. There's always a next move, a deflection, a performance. I knew Jessica well enough to anticipate that. Sure enough, Wednesday morning, I got an email from her attorney, a man named Harold Dunning, based in Wilmington Star. The message was brief. Mr. Wallace. My client has informed me of your recent actions, which he believes constitute financial manipulation and withholding of marital assets. We request a detailed account of the retirement funds in question and a meeting to discuss equitable distribution . Equitable distribution. That phrase alone made me laugh out loud in my office. She tried to drain $800,000 behind my back, and now she wanted to talk equitable. I didn't respond right away. I forwarded the email to my own attorney, Rachel Pierce *, a sharp and methodical divorce lawyer in Charlotte. She'd handled my colleague's divorce last year and came highly recommended. Within the hour, Rachel called. "I've seen this before," she said. A spouse tries to beat the system, gets caught, and then tries to flip the narrative. Don't worry. We'll respond, carefully. What are the odds you walked away with anything? I asked. She'll walk away with less than she expected, that's for sure. You documented everything. The court will see that. Judges don't like liars or failed heists. I smiled for the first time in days. Not because I felt victorious, but because someone finally said it out loud. This was a heist. A personal, domestic, emotional heist. And she had failed. But I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. It was time to go on offense. The moment I decided to fight back, everything changed. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was planning, calculating, shifting from the wounded husband trying to process betrayal into the analyst, the strategist, the man who made a living catching fraud before it happened. Jessica had played a dangerous game in a domain she didn't understand. She thought emotion would make me sloppy. She forgot I was never emotional with numbers. Rachel and I spent the next few days building our case. Every document I'd saved, emails, financial records, transfer logs, formed the foundation of our response. Her team had no idea they were stepping into a war room, and I wasn't bluffing. "Let's hit them with full transparency," Rachel said. "It throws off people like Jessica. They expect lies. When you give them truth, ugly, precise truth, it leaves them exposed." So we did. Our reply to Harold Dunning included a full timeline of transactions, screenshots of Jessica's transfer attempts, and the triggered fraud alerts. We included digital footprints proving she used an authorized access to move funds. Rachel even submitted an affidavit from my company's compliance officer confirming that our monitoring system was not just internal, it adhered to federal auditing standards. It wasn't just a response. It was a data-driven takedown. By the following Monday, Harold's tone shifted. No more accusations. No more talk of withholding assets. Instead, he requested a mediation meeting. That told me everything. Jessica hadn't told him the full story. She likely painted herself as a victim, saying she left an emotionally distant husband and was trying to start over. But now Harold saw the paper trail. And the fraud. The meeting was set for the next Friday at a neutral legal office in downtown Charlotte. Jessica would be there. It would be the first time we'd see each other since the message. I didn't sleep much the night before. It wasn't anger or nerves. It was strategy. I was walking into that room not as a husband, but as a man protecting the integrity of his life's work. My systems, my savings, my sanity. She had tried to dismantle them all. The conference room was all glass and leather chairs, modern, sleek, professional. Rachel and I arrived early. She wore a steel gray blazer and carried a thick folder labeled Wallace versus Wallace. I brought nothing but a calm face. Jessica arrived 5 minutes late. Her hair was curled, makeup perfect, and she wore a navy blue suit I'd never seen before. She looked composed, like a polished executive. But I saw it, the tension in her jaw, the way her eyes darted. She wasn't as in control as she wanted everyone to believe. Tyler wasn't with her. That was a small victory. Harold opened with pleasantries, then laid out Jessica's perspective. It was a well-rehearsed script, irreconcilable differences, years of drifting apart, feeling invisible in her own home. Standard lines. Rachel didn't flinch. When it was our turn, she slid the folder across the table. Inside, timelines, transaction logs, IP tracking, emails, hotel confirmations with Tyler's name, screenshots of the private Gmail account she'd used to coordinate the money transfer. Jessica's fingers stopped flipping halfway through. Her face paled. I didn't authorize that to be shared, she stammered. Rachel calmly replied, It's discoverable. This is a financial case, and these are financial records. Harold looked at her sharply. You told me the transfers were mutual. Jessica didn't respond, just stared at me. Her face, once confident, now registered something unfamiliar. Respect or regret? Do you deny attempting to move over $780,000 into a private account using falsified documentation? Rachel asked. Jessica finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't think he'd notice. That sentence echoed louder than anything in the room. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I just sat still and watched her crumble under the weight of her own plan. This wasn't about humiliating her. It was about clarity, truth, justice. The rest of the meeting was procedural. We agreed to temporary asset freezes, pending divorce proceedings. She would vacate the house within 30 days. I would retain control of all accounts until a court-appointed financial expert reviewed the division proposal. When the meeting ended, everyone stood. Jessica lingered. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she simply said, I never thought you'd fight back. I looked her in the eyes. That's because you stopped paying attention. Then I walked out. Back at home, the silence felt different now. Not empty, but clean. No more pretending. No more analysis of what went wrong. I'd faced the betrayal and met it head-on. But I also knew this wasn't the end. Jessica wasn't the kind of person who gave up after one failed scheme. And Tyler? Men like him didn't just vanish. There would be more to come, more legal moves, maybe even public smearing. But I was ready. I didn't just have evidence. I had purpose. And for the first time in months, I felt something strange. Peace. Not because justice had been fully served yet, but because I'd finally taken back control. 2 weeks passed after the mediation. The house was quiet, emptier, but somehow lighter. I changed the locks a day after the meeting, not out of fear, but to symbolically reset the boundaries of my life. Jessica's voice, her perfume, her cluttered calendar notes, gone. What remained were questions. Not just why she did it, but how long she had been planning it. And who else knew? I had time now. Time to dig. I started with the email logs I'd archived from our joint cloud storage. They hadn't been fully deleted. Jessica had never been careful with metadata. I found dozens of messages between her and Tyler, stretching back nearly 8 months. The early ones were flirtatious, vague, but by the 5th month, they were discussing next steps. Travel plans, finances, even a shared Dropbox folder labeled Arizona Move. Arizona, not San Diego. She'd lied about the conference. Using her hotel receipts and timestamps from those messages, I traced their meetup to a private Airbnb in Phoenix. The account used was under Tyler's alias, Ben Hartley, but the email tied back to a legitimate corporate IP address registered to Stone Ridge Consulting *, a name I didn't recognize. So I dug deeper. Within an hour, I found that Stone Ridge was a shell company, a generic LLC registered in Delaware with no staff, no online presence, and only a P.O. box address. Classic laundering structure. That's when the picture changed. This wasn't just an affair and a grab for retirement funds. Tyler wasn't some random rebound. He was a con man, and Jessica, whether she knew it or not, had walked straight into a professional scam. I compiled everything into a private dossier. Names, timelines, account connections. Even the fake invoices Jessica had unknowingly signed when she booked marketing sessions through Tyler's shell site. They weren't marketing seminars at all. They were financial drains disguised as business development. Rachel and I met the next day at her firm. "Eric, this isn't just personal anymore," she said, flipping through the folder. "This is criminal. Jessica might be complicit, or she might be a manipulated pawn. But either way, this guy, Tyler, is a real threat." We decided to elevate it. Rachel contacted a federal financial crimes investigator she knew from a previous case. Within 48 hours, the FBI opened a preliminary inquiry. The documents I had collected were handed over. That's when things really began to move. Jessica, unaware of the news tightening around Tyler's operation, called me the following Sunday. She wasn't angry. She wasn't cold. She sounded afraid. "Eric, I think I made a mistake." I didn't speak. I let the silence press her. "There's something wrong with Tyler. He said we'd be safe, that this was all legal, but he's gone. Just gone. I called the hotel where he said he was staying and nothing. No record. His number doesn't work." "Did you give him access to your accounts?" I asked flatly. "Yes." I sighed. It was like watching someone set fire to their own lifeboat. She began crying. "I think he took everything. Even my Roth IRA. I thought I was smart. I thought I had control." "You thought wrong," I said, quietly. For a moment, she sounded like the woman I married. Not scheming, not superior, just scared. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but I didn't say anything. I hung up. That night, I got a call from Rachel. "Eric, you're not going to believe this. Tyler, or whoever he is, has been flagged in 2 other states. Same pattern, same tactics. Women with access to mid-level corporate funds. Each time, he disappears right after they try to shift large sums. But your data is the most complete profile they've seen." I leaned back in my chair, watching the city lights outside my window flicker in the distance. Do they have a real name? Not yet, but they're closing in. For a man who had always valued control, this moment felt surreal. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't even just a survivor. I was now the key witness in a multi-state fraud case. It was almost poetic. Jessica had tried to disappear with our money. Instead, her accomplice disappeared with hers. The irony was brutal and complete, but part of me still wrestled with it. She had lied to me, betrayed me, but was she evil or just foolish? Did she know Tyler was a con artist from the start? Or did she fall for the fantasy like so many others? Maybe it didn't matter anymore. The facts were facts, and the investigation had begun. The next morning, I changed my phone number, closed the last of our joint credit lines, started making new passwords for everything I'd ever shared. Then I called my company's internal security team and requested a personal audit of all my accounts. I told them, no special treatment. Assume I'm a stranger. Treat this like an attack. They did, and they found nothing. My system held. My protocols were airtight. The defenses I'd spent years building had saved me. But what came next would test me in new ways. Because now I wasn't just protecting myself. I was helping bring down something far bigger. 3 weeks after the FBI got involved, I found myself in a small, windowless room on the 3rd floor of a federal building in downtown Charlotte. Across from me sat 2 agents, one from financial crimes, the other from cyber operations. I handed over my encrypted drive, the last piece of evidence I'd collected. Inside was a folder titled ** Asset Eclipse **, every screenshot, every metadata trail, every financial anomaly linked to Jessica and Tyler's scheme. You built this system yourself. Agent Carr asked, looking over the dashboards I had exported. From the ground up, I said, years of refining. It was never supposed to catch my own wife. They nodded, respectful. It wasn't pity they gave me, but recognition, the kind you offer someone who took a hit and still stood up swinging. 3 days later, I got the call. They had identified Tyler. His real name was Darren Blake, a serial fraudster with open warrants in Nevada, Texas, and Florida Star. His aliases varied, but the tactics didn't. He targeted women with financial authority or marital access. Each time, he'd spark a fake romance, convince them to make safe transfers, then disappear into the system before the banks caught on. But this time, he'd miscalculated. He'd run into someone who understood the system better than he ever could. Jessica, meanwhile, was sinking. Her accounts were frozen. Her credit was in ruins. She lost a job at Mercury Insight Group the moment internal audits flagged an authorized account activity linked to Stone Ridge. Her world, carefully curated, branded in positivity and Pinterest boards, collapsed under the weight of reality. One evening, just after sunset, she showed up at the house. I didn't invite her in. She stood on the porch, hair tied back, mascara smudged, not from crying, but from the erosion of confidence. "I lost everything," she said. "No," I replied. "You gave it away." She flinched. I didn't know who he really was. I didn't think he'd leave like that. "That's the problem, Jessica. You didn't think." She looked away. "You were always careful. Always so in control. I thought I needed more excitement." I didn't argue. What was there to say? After a moment, she asked, "Do you hate me?" I took a breath. "No, but I don't trust you, and I never will again." She nodded slowly. A tear slid down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it. "I guess that's fair." Then she left, and I went inside. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply, not because everything was fixed, but because I knew where I stood. In the weeks that followed, the FBI made an arrest in Phoenix. Darren Blake had tried to scam another woman, a junior executive at a pharmaceutical company, but she hesitated long enough for the agents to close in. His laptop contained partial notes on Jessica Wallace, Phase 3. She'd been part of a much larger plan, but my system had stopped him cold. They offered me a commendation, not publicly, of course, but through a formal letter and an invitation to consult on future white-collar investigations. I accepted, not because I needed the validation, but because I wanted to turn the worst chapter of my life into a firewall for others. I started giving talks at cybersecurity seminars under the title, Is When the Threat Wears a Wedding Ring, Emotional Manipulation and Financial Defense. Asterisk. People listened, because I'd lived it. And eventually, I met someone, not through dating apps or broken-hearted mutual friends. She was a fellow analyst from a fraud conference in Atlanta. Her name was Maya Asterisk, and she asked thoughtful questions during my talk. We shared a coffee afterward, then dinner, then stories. She wasn't loud like Jessica, or magnetic in that performative way, but she was kind, steady. She laughed at my dry humor and understood the peace in silence. One night, 6 months after our first meeting, she looked at me over dinner and asked, "Do you think trust can be rebuilt after betrayal?" I thought about it. "Yes," I said, "but it has to be owned. Slowly. Like a firewall, you don't just install it. You test it. You patch the holes." She smiled. "Good answer." So that's where my story ends. Not with revenge, not with ruin, but with recovery. Jessica lost everything she thought would bring her happiness. And I lost the illusion that love alone could protect you. But what I gained, clarity, integrity, and a second chance to build a life, this time on truth.